I'm Johannes from Avatar, and you have the pleasure of watching Grim TV.
Nice to meet you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's it's an intense period in the life of the band and the life of me and the life of people around me. Everything is happening at once, good and bad right now. But it's as far as talking band and doing band stuff in the life of the band is better than ever.
Yeah. 2022 has been like a quite good year for the band.
Yeah.
And some pretty cool like tours and shows from what I could see.
It ended up being so in a way where, because that was the end of the hunter-gatherer cycle, which of course started in the middle of the pandemic and limited what we could do, although we tried to do everything possible to be out there, and we did live streams. We started to tour where we could tour early on and just try to keep the band going to the best of our ability, and we did pretty well. But still, of course, a feeling initially like did this album even happen if you compare it to what it usually feels like. But then, of course, the summer of 2022, a lot of cool things happened right after each other. We did our biggest, best German festival show so far. We did we opened for Iron Maiden in Brazil. We did all kinds of really amazing things, and right before Christmas we finally returned to Mexico, which was one of those things where we, right before the pandemic, it's like, oh, we finally made it to Mexico first time, now we can start touring here, and then crap, and then we had to kind of feel like, okay, do we have to start over now? But no, we did this festival, it's amazing, so that stays open. So yeah, no, it's things, the bookend of Hunter-Gatherer, the closing chapter, definitely way more optimistic than the opening chapter. So, that gives us a great momentum into now we're here doing this.
Yeah. Like I said, now we're here. Mostly to talk about your album that comes out next week already.
Yeah.
It's called Dance Devil Dance, and I saw in some earlier interviews that you did that you're saying that as a band you want to try to save heavy metal.
Yeah.
Do you feel like with this album like you've got a good crack at that?
I think at least by the parameters and definitions that we put on that. I mean, it's not that I don't necessarily think that Avatar needs to save Megadeth. That's not the point. But what I do feel is that I see a bunch of problems in the general direction of a lot of metal today. And I mean, it's been ongoing for a long time, but no, when it's bad, it's bad. And it comes down to, simple, the songwriting and the performance and how you record things, where now, I'm trying to think of which end to start this, but I feel like there is kind of there's two paths going on at once, right? One is being this overly convoluted, disappear up your own asshole kind of metal, very self-gratification, and very just losing touch with a rock and roll aspect of what metal could and should be. That also could and should be there when you're being extreme and all kinds of things, but just performance-wise, that whatever you're doing actually is done in a way where it can truly reach and move the listener and make the listener move. I feel too much is convoluted in a way where it's best enjoyed if you sit down and shut up. And I feel that metal doesn't necessarily, maybe it's not the first job we have if we do metal. Maybe it's to make people get up and get moving, and do things. Maybe you drive just a tiny bit too fast. Maybe you had just a little bit too much to drink. Maybe you got pregnant again. Maybe something happens. You pick up something heavy and put it back down and do it 3 times in a row because you're at the gym. Yes, something, that sense of get you going can be lost due to the very sterile sound, a very just destroying your drummer's performance by using, I don't know, the beat detective button or whatever it's called, and sound replacing it, so it's you know, sample some more known drummer but make it all robotic and everything, and songs that where you kill the momentum over and over. Or if you don't do that, maybe you're in a more, let's call it, commercial path. You get the chorus and everything, and you emote, but it's also, again, auto-tuned to pieces. The melodic language of whatever the vocals are doing is very lazy, because you don't dare to do anything too different from what the others do, but you don't quite do that as well as they did, and everything sounds the same. And there are, of course, tons of exceptions to this. I'm excited about new metal releases all the time as well, but the general direction, and especially things that seems to crack through from the underground a bit, I feel like, you know, there used to be a time where, you know, when Judas Priest were both the biggest and the best, you know, and it can be done. So it's those kind of things, and I want to basically, maybe it boils down to wanting to do metal, that has a chorus that you can sing along to, whatever, but at the same time there's something going on beyond that. There's more to it. There's more, you know, you can respect the art, you can love your metal as we do. That metal gave us everything, real. Like, I met my wife in the context of, without heavy metal I wouldn't even have met my wife. And the friendships and the adventures and everything we've done, it's all heavy metal, got us through it all. So we just want to give something in return, and giving something in return means trying to add songs to it all that maybe you haven't heard precisely those songs yet before we put them out. And I guess that's along with some kind of answer to that.
Yeah, I can follow that sentiment where, like, there's some bands that are kind of basically playing for, like, look what I can do. Yeah,
the look what I can do, or I can't, or I don't believe that I can truly do this, so I let the computer do it. And the thing is, it's funny. You're probably still a better musician than the guys in Venom were when the first couple of albums came out, and still those albums sound better than anything going on right now, just because it is people playing in a room and who are excited to be there. You know.
And in that regard, like, going further on that, like saving heavy metal and bringing songs that you haven't heard before, like, I listened to your album already, and I feel like you most of the time kind of do. Like, the album is, like, it's clearly Avatar, but it's so diverse again. Like, sort of, I've seen that comment pass by a lot. Like, you never really know what to expect from you guys. Which I think is really, really cool. And
thank you, me too. And I feel like it's many times used to be that when, you know, at the time of Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath came out, and a song like, wait, which one is on that album? Who Are You is on that album, or, right? Yeah. And it's just, that wasn't expected. Like, bands used to do this all the time, and some still are. And the thing is, we all end up sounding like ourselves anyway. We could try to run as fast as we can in the opposite directions away from ourselves, but we just come around and be ourselves anyway, because we cannot run away from our hands and from our vocal cords, from our way of playing. So I have to sneeze. And you can quote me on that. You know, so I think it used to be normal, and I think more should do it like that.
Yeah.
But now people are scared to walk outside of that. I know on stuff like this I never mention names because it's not nice, but I know for a fact that one of these more bigger established bands that can play, because I've heard them play, and they have the opportunity to record in one of those famous person's home studio, who the famous person is also a drummer, so it's the greatest thing ever, and they play like crazy in there to get the best possible drums, and then they leave the studio with that recording, and then they purchase the samples of another known band's drummer, so they put that on top. And what was all that work for them, you know? And now you don't sound like you anymore. People, I don't know, are very scared of being themselves, I think, and that is There are so many things that are metal if you look at what everything metal can be. But, everything from mullets to, I don't know, something. There's a wide span of what potentially is metal. Scared of yourself is not metal.
And I feel also that like in your songs there's such like there's like one song that starts off like really hard chugging, basically death metal.
Yeah.
Well, then you have another song that is basically almost like a soft like country touch. Like those extremes is just highlights each other.
Yeah.
And that's something
Thank
I
you.
always really appreciate on like an album.
Well, thank you. Well, I think this time though we try to, because it's always going to be real eclectic when it's us. We like to feel like beginners a little bit when we do something, so look for inspirations and angles from a bit all over the place. This time I still feel it's more focused. Maybe like you said, it's wide span of type what the songs are, but inside of each song I feel that this time we are more focused. If in the past you would make a song that is first it's really angry, then it gets really sad, and then it's strangely horny in the middle. Now we try to do one angry song, and then comes a sad song, and then comes a horny song, and more dunk dunk dunk. So again, make it more, have better focus. And I think that's one of the big differences with what is this album called? Dance Devil Dance. That song by song, it's there's more focus on whatever that is supposed to be. And it's less trippy. I mean, we're never a prog band per se, but that little semi-progressive journey through emotions, we instead spread that out over the whole album.
And like you said, like you try to make it sort of feel like you're new with every album or when recording. Is there like something specific for this album that like you try something new that like you're kind of really proud of or happy with that how it turned out?
Right. Well, one thing was of course how it was recorded in terms of that we built the studio ourselves and out on the countryside, and just the circumstances we created for it and the method of recording that led to. I think that's a big difference that covers it all. If I think from song to song for a while, it probably will pop up this little, okay, this is different for us, To keep, I guess that I kept the word dance in the back of the head for everything very consciously. Of course, we still always wanted to be good at being groovy or whatever, but this time really like just the choices of what riff came after what riff, also in the more extreme song, and like, can you think dance when there's blast beats, and how do you make sense out of that? And in our own mind, I feel we did. So there's that, and then I think one thing song specific might be what's called The Dirt I'm Buried In. It's funny, that one was it's one of those songs that took forever to finish up. I guess because it's always when you really like something but it feels a bit softer, there's this instinct of, okay, but that's cool, we start this soft thing, then we get real heavy in the middle. And because the stuff that became The Dirt I'm Buried In, they first came out of even when we were back in the day riding on Smells Like a Freak Show. So some parts are really old at this point. And it just didn't, Smells Like a Freak Show evolved to what it became. And then we kind of had these leftover things, and that grew into, this is really cool, we got the disco beat, we got this chorus, we got this, and what do we do with that? Well, then it can go really heavy over here, and this over here was then 3 minutes of Stockholm death metal in the middle, and you're like, okay, that's not as good as this song over here, that makes sense. And there's always that song that takes forever to come around to just let the song be what it wants to be, as silly as that can sound, but just back up, okay, what's actually the feeling here, and follow that and trust that. And when that finally fell into place there, that invited for me to, for instance, sing in a slightly different way of singing for me, in terms of that I'm naturally a baritone, and I scream myself into being a tenor a lot of the time basically at what we do, or hit those high notes or some falsetto and stuff. But I got to be that is probably one of my most natural places to be vocally that I ever been on an Avatar recording. And to kind of make that work was in itself a new challenge, because we like intensity. It's one way of measuring if it's good heavy metal, if it makes you out of breath to perform it. And to find that in that range became kind of fresh approach. I usually get to use that range more at karaoke than I do on Avatar albums a lot of the time. I'm usually like up here or down here. And this whole world here where normal singers in normal bands might be the most. And I was like, oh, this is so comfortable and interesting. These pants fit, and what do we do with this now? And so, yeah, that's one example, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's one of those songs that like it's nestled somewhere in the middle on the album, and it just like stands out.
Yeah, it does, and I'm glad it became very special to me. You know, just what meaning the song carries lyrically for me personally, and all of that. But yeah, so it immediately has some emotional significance once it came together, and it's cool to see that it's connecting with people in the way it is, you know, out there in the world now as well. Like it's doing, for being the kind of band that we are, that you know, I'm not Taylor Swift, I'm just almost as pretty, or she's almost as pretty as I am. But other than that, we don't have much in common career-wise, right? So this song, relative to what we are, this song's, you know, traveling in a way that you can't always take for granted as a metal band here and now.
Another song that I've seen that has been like traveling quite some is that song you did with Lizzie Hale.
Yeah.
That I've noticed like a whole lot of comments on the video on YouTube and such. It's a like kind of distinctively more straightforward, especially with the video, like socially like commentary from you guys, which is something that like is not always that like, straightforward.
Exactly, because we are, as far as who we are, you know, in the van or with each other, we are pretty political and interested, and watch the news sometimes and whatever, you know. And then there's that point out of what is Avatar. It's not that Avatar, there's nothing that is completely not political, because if a grand global scheme of what if you know, now we sit someplace where we are really free to do what we do and express what we express, and many times we get to hang out in crowds where we feel like strangely like the majority while doing it, sure. But then you have the big picture, you still take some kind of stance all the time. And we never denied that, but at the same time, what we felt artistically inclined to do is not always the message before the aesthetic or whatever. But then with this song, I don't know, you get to that point, I guess, and it's almost sad that there's room for being political in the way that this song is. It's a bit sad because it actually falls back to, I remember in some smaller town somewhere in Sweden a few years ago, there was this manifestation done by neo-Nazis, right? And the beautiful thing in that was that the counter demonstration, the people that came out against them, was of course so much bigger, you know, just normal people saying fuck the Nazis. And there was a guy holding up a sign on a picture there for one of the news articles for when it happened that roughly would translate to, I can't believe that we still have to go out and protest this shit. That is a bit sad that of all things, of all the problems and disagreements we can have, of all the things we need to collectively grow through and learn and evolve from and all that people fall back on these shitty ideas that we kind of got properly tested for what they were 80 years ago, and you know, and we should know better by now. So that fascism is still can happen, keeps happening, takes on different forms. That we are susceptible to that kind of language and propaganda, and to be drawn into it over and over again. The authoritarianism, hey, something was taken from you by someone over there, but we can rise up to that thing if you just, you know, do what we do. And you know how we win? By hitting harder than they do. the truth, violence is truth. You know, that fascist ideology of worshiping violence, and always that promised return to that former glory. You make this or this great again or whatever. There are multiple versions of that, big and small, but it's always that was this good thing. You know, we had a first Reich and a second Reich, and now a third, and I'm sure someone's looking to create a fourth. You know, and that's because we had it, and now we're gonna have it instead of truly looking forward. And like, I want Star Trek. You know, I want all the alien races of the universe to be like, oh, the humans figured it out. And we're standing in our own way with that. So at least that we boil it down to that, like, that suddenly it becomes a woke, brave stance to say, hey, fascism is kind of dumb. It's like, fuckers, have you never watched an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie? We've been knowing this was done forever, you know? Or who kills Nazis, yeah, like all of them. And so yeah, there's that.
Yeah. Also, like this album, you're for the first time kind of self-releasing it. Did you feel like just now was the time, or was it something that you've been like working toward for quite a while already? Or
it's always that ongoing discussion of like, when you work with people, what do they really do and for what and stuff. And we had some relationships with labels, especially with E1 in North America, that we are ultimately pretty happy with it all, and that really helped us at the time. And just felt at this point where we are as a band and what we would like to do, and we see like the specifics that we would like to do, our ideas were sometimes a bit different than the labels, and it ends up being your money anyway. You know, you get the advance or whatever, then you pay back, and you don't never see a return of it, and it's just a glorified loan, really. Well, we were now in a position where we could skip that middleman, budget it ourselves, keep it all, and make certain choices in who we work with, who in what ways in different places, and ultimately what we were I think the offers we were getting were something that most bands in our position would be very, very happy with, and we could have kept on trucking with labels there, and some nice offers were out there, but we felt it had to be one of the, you know, again, like the private helicopter landing on my roof, someone knocks on the door from one of the major labels, now, oh yeah, you're gonna be the Stones now, you know. Yeah. If it wasn't that, then we felt it's worth trying and pursuing this ourselves. And so far so good. Now again, the actual release of the album is 1 week away, but in the meantime I just see just looking, the monthly streams on Spotify is higher than it ever was. We're about to hit that magical 7-figure number there. You know, I'll take a screenshot. So it's all pushing, and yeah, again, so far so good at this, for the level we are at, and we get to decide and be in control.
Yeah, I feel at this point with like the kind of fan base you have, it's like a very good moment to do so.
Yeah, because at this point I feel like we already seen that we are maintaining what we had, not losing all the work up until now. That was the first goal, of course. That we made, no problem, breezed through that part, and then how far can we grow this on by ourselves?
Yeah.
And that is also, again, so far so good. We see where it takes it, but again, we have songs on, for whatever reason, American radio was really good to us for the longest time, and now we are having the best situation with European radio we ever had, which is, I never thought that would happen. That is happening now on our own watch. So, you know, we're doing something right.
That's deep. Now you're going to like on tour in like a couple of weeks already.
Next week.
Is there like any song of the new album that you're personally like really looking forward to bring?
Without spoilers, all 5 of them, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll have to come and see you to see what songs you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. No, but we there's I'm real. The whole set list and the way we look at how this show is gonna be, that is evolving what needed to be evolved, and kind of respects what becomes tradition within our setting and brings that with you, and how the marriage between the very free rock and roll side of what is a show without us and the more theatrical scripted stuff that we want to create, those moments, and how they marry each other potentially. We'll see when we do it on stage, of course, but all these ideas lined up, and again this choice of songs where certain songs you have to play forever and ever if you're a band. You build that relationship and tradition with the fans, of course, and we are. But then we have kind of done some somewhat daring removals, put in some stuff that I feel suddenly, this turned into a deep cut somehow along the way, just because we have so many songs, and it's nice to put that little piece of deep cut back in there. So I'm really, really excited about how this is coming together.
I've also noticed that, like, with your US tour you did last year and with tours that you're having lined up now, that the bands that you have with you are usually like quite diverse. Does that kind of hark back to like you trying to like you sounding so diverse, and is that like something that you guys as a band have like a lot of say in? Like, do you reach out to bands?
There's been a couple of things through the years that have caused why we this with us. One thing is, of course, that we always thought, well, who should Avatar tour with? And we don't, like, who is like us? And I truly, it's been a hard question to answer. We know what we like and really like. So yeah, if Gojira would like to tour with us, yes, absolutely, and we would love to, for instance. And but do we sound like Gojira? I don't think so, but I think we both, in our completely own ways, are doing some good, proper, well-performed metal that couldn't have been released 20 years ago, that could only be out at the time it was out, because it does, add something new to the conversation, and they play really well and are fun to watch. So I guess, in my opinion, we have that in common with them. But the actual, the sounds and the looks of it, of course, very different. And there are many like that, but who would we, in terms of heavy bands that dress up nicely nowadays and put on the makeup, I think we do it a bit better than many of them. I think in many cases you have the bands and they never really go anywhere because they start with the paint and then they pick up the guitar, and it's so important to do it the other way around. You pick up the guitar, and then when you come up with some riffs, you try to figure out what does that riff look like, and that's a really weird question to ask. So they're just different because we are different, so it's hard to find that perfect overlap. And then sometimes we really had the ambition to make an evening feel like a variety show, to real one-man orchestras with acoustic guitars, and then sideshow circus groups, sword swallowers, and stuff like that, and what's called psychobilly punk bands, and just different ways of infusing that energy there without just doing this massive metal evening. And nowadays, though, what we're putting together now with Veil of Maya or something is still, yes, they're different from us, but now it's still at least proper metal to begin with. And that now, because of all the weird things we have done, feels like a very fresh approach suddenly, which now I'm really excited about that. Also because, for instance, here in Helsinki, a few weeks ago, I saw In Flames when they played, and a great lineup. With there were 4 metal bands on the building, and I had the time of my life. Like, oh yeah, you can. It's nice when there's a lot of metal on a metal show. That seems like a crazy idea we need to try more often. So it's just, again, reactions to whatever came before.
Yeah, so you're having one of those bands with you to
Orbit
the
Culture,
stage,
yeah,
Orbit
exactly,
Culture.
and they're really great.
Yeah.
And I love, again, very different from us in terms of that. Just how they present on stage, there's a certain oomph in what they do that makes me feel like, they can pocket park with a trailer on the back of the car energy. There's a male competence there that comes across in stage on the best possible way.
Yeah, they're
really cool.
They're they're going places.
They definitely are, as they should.
And last year, like, I was very surprised to see the Calistao boys on the lineup
yeah,
with you
yeah.
guys. It's like way out there.
Yeah, no, you know, but it's they were cool, they were nice, and we like to give a little bit of everything a chance.
Yeah.